Hey, it's Kev from Blender Binge. In this short video, I'm going to be discussing focal length and depth of field. Somebody in our comments section has asked for this video, so I'm getting around to it and actually creating it. So here we go. The first thing I want to discuss is our camera. So I have a simple scene here, and I'll show you this scene, okay, where I simply just created a sphere, a cone, and Suzanne, and I just threw a few lights in there. Okay, I generally don't usually like point lights, but for this video I just threw it in there because it just shows me what I want to see. Okay, and then I have my camera set up focusing on our cone. Alright, so I'm under camera, okay, camera settings, and I'm going to be talking about this section in here. So if I hit 0, I'm now in my camera view, and I'm going to say lock camera to view. And then I'm going to hit rendered right here. And you see here that right now my focal length is set at 50 millimeters. So I'm going to start with this, okay? My focal length, I'm going to start and I'm going to back it off to 35 millimeters. I'm going to keep my f-stop number at 5.6 for now. Now you see that at this rendered view, okay, and if I go a little bit closer here to Suzanne and I'm on my subject, okay, I'm focused on my cone, and you see that at this setting, okay, 35 millimeters, which is my focal length, that's the zoom on your camera, I'm focusing on the cone, and my f-stop here is at 5.6, which is telling me that my aperture is open, slightly open, okay, it's pretty wide, and I'm focusing here. Now I'm going to start with my focal length. If I go down to something like focal length 8, that gives me a really wide angle. And if you see, if I go closer here to Suzanne, she starts to distort a little bit. She starts to really distort out here. And these are really far away. Okay, so this is kind of your general wide angle view. This is pretty extreme wide angle. When I start going up, say 24, that gap starts closing, and you see the stuff in the background starts getting a little closer, and the distortion starts getting a little bit less. Okay, by the time I hit 35, there's still a little bit of distortion here, but this is a normal kind of view where, you know, kind of similar to what we usually see. Go to 50, which is another common focal length. People like this for portraits. It kind of starts condensing everything and really kind of bringing things together in your image. And then you have things like 70. You go to 70 and you see that the background starts getting larger. And this starts flattening out. And your midground starts getting a lot larger too. Okay, this starts approaching what's called telephoto. And then you have even higher, so I'll go to 300 and you see a super distance, okay? This is crazy. This is telephoto. This is like your zoom on a camera, okay? When you start really zooming in, if your camera goes that high. So you could see here that I'm focused right here on the cone. The cone is sharp. At 5.6 aperture, which is a pretty wide open aperture here, she starts blurring, and the sphere back here starts blurring while this stays in focus. Okay, if I were to focus on Suzanne, you see now that this really blurs out, this starts blurring a bit, and she's in focus. And if I were to focus on the sphere, okay, sphere is sharp now, these guys are really blurry. That's at f5.6. And if you go lower, say f2, you start getting really blurred out, okay, because you're letting a lot of light into your camera, and without getting too technical, this setting will start really blurring out everything that you're not focused on. So if I focused on Suzanne, you'll see that these guys start really blurring out. So if you want that kind of really cool shallow depth of field look, this is a good place to start. All right, you go f2, focus on what you want in your scene, and everything else kind of blurs out. Now, the higher the f-stop, the deeper the depth of field goes, which means more stuff in the background will be in focus. So if I go to say f11, okay, you start to see this goes more in focus. Alright, so these are pretty sharp. She's sharp, this is sharp, and this is just a little bit blown out, a little bit blurred out. I go to f22, which is really high. Almost everything is sharp. Okay, a little bit of fringe on here, but most of your scene is sharp. That's because you tick your aperture down to a really tiny, small little hole. Okay, the smaller the hole, the more is in focus. But on a real camera, the smaller the hole, the less light you have. So there's something called the triangle of exposure, which I won't go into in this video because I just want to kind of show you, to answer the question that I had in the comments about making a video on cameras and camera focal length and things. Okay, this is kind of how it governs it. And the light inside here you can really control, whereas a camera you can bring lights and control it, but if you're shooting in natural light or available light, you kind of have to really know that triangle of exposure. So the triangle of exposure just basically says that the smaller your aperture, okay, the less light you're getting in. So you either have to decrease your shutter speed to let more light in, so the slower shutter speed, so the shutter stays open longer to let more light through that little hole, or you have to increase the sensitivity of your camera. So it used to be film sensitivity, which is ISO, so you would bounce that up. Okay, but that's a little bit beyond this video, and if you want me to do a video on that, let me know in the comments, and I'll gladly explain the entire triangle of exposure to you. But for Blender, 9 times out of 10, unless you're doing hardcore visual effects work and trying to match cameras, or you're the layout artist on a film, or the director, or cinematographer would usually set that stuff, director of photography, you kind of can get away with just knowing your different cameras and the different looks that they give you. So just know, focal length 300, that's telephoto. I mean, you can go even higher. Blender lets you go, I mean, I don't even know how high I can go, but I've only ever played a 600 lens. That's about as high as I've gotten on cameras that I've used. But you can see that it's even at f22, all right, at focal length 600, you're still getting a shallow depth of field. It's still blurring a little bit out. Okay, but everything looks like it's in the same spot. So if you've seen pictures of, like the moon, when the moon is really huge, okay, they're using a really, really long lens. Picture of a person, and then the moon is like huge behind them. This is how they're doing it. Most cameras, unless you're going professional, usually you could probably get a maybe 70, maybe even higher, maybe, I don't know, maybe 150 if I had to guess. I don't know the answer to that, but you can go decent telephoto. But extreme telephoto is usually reserved for relatively expensive cameras with really good lenses. So that kind of gives you a rundown of focal length. And f-stop, if you want to, in your own animations, you want to get that look, okay, the lower the f-stop, okay, so if I go even like f2, you see that gives you that shallow depth of field. And then the focus over here shows you like what you want to focus on. So right now I'm focused on Suzanne. If I want my subject, okay, I want my character to be in focus while talking, and I want the background to be all blurred out, and I want to do that all in the render, you can do it this way. All right? Cone, same thing. She blurs out, that blurs out, now the cone is in focus. And you can use distance. You can use a number of different tricks to pull rack focus, which is what you've seen. Like sometimes the camera will be focused here, and then in the same shot will start to focus here, and this blurs out, and this comes in focus. That's called a rack focus. You've seen that on TV all the time. There are ways to set that up, and I can do that in a video, in a whole other video, and show you how to set that up if you want. So let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in. But this is the basics, okay? So hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. There's a lot to this, and knowing photography really, really helps. But this is the basics on how cameras kind of work in here. Just knowing focal length alone can help you frame up your shots really nicely. So again, if you want me to expand on this and do a video that's a lot more in depth with a lot more information, let me know, and I'll gladly go in and break it out. Maybe I'll do a whole series on it if you want. So just let me know, okay? So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a basic rundown of focal length and depth of field. And if it does, let me know. And if you like this video and you got something out of it, definitely hit like, hit subscribe, share it, whatever, and hit a bell notification if you do subscribe, so you get notified when I create a new video. Okay? That's it for now. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.